Hey everyone, Dan Johnston here. I'm the Jack of all Ministries, here to help you make it happen. And today I'm going to show you Miss Betty, our 1967 Trailblazer camper. So this is the front side of Miss Betty. Like I said, it's a 1967 Trailblazer. It's a 16-foot camper. And we wanted to keep the outside really original. The inside was gutted down to the studs and almost everything is new on the inside. But on the outside, a lot of the stuff is just the vintage original. Trailblazers are really known for having this aluminum stripe down the middle with the shutters on the sides of the Jalousie windows, which is what we kept. A lot of people ask us, oh, did you add that metal strip? And we did not. That is original. We did polish it to the best of our abilities, but it's an old piece of metal, so but it still shines pretty good, although there are some BB marks and stuff like that from some kids that had shot at it while it was parked on somebody's property before we owned it. But that's original. The Jalousie windows are original. I did add some metal strips to cover up some of the dirtiness that builds up in the old windows like that, but again, original. We painted it this gray color because we kind of messed around with some colors and we felt like this kind of was modern, but it also kept the vintagey look to it. We also upgraded a lot of LED lights on this on the outside. So we took these lights here so that we would have a way to be able to see. I also put some on the back to scare away bears and stuff like that because my wife is afraid of critters coming to get us while we're boondocking. So we have the ability to turn those on independently on either side. We also have LED side markers, which are that vintage look but still LED. We also added this access port here. The original one was metal, but now you have access. If you open this up, you can get into it, and I store some of my outside things, waste hoses, freshwater hoses, things like that. We also have an access port here, and this gives us access to my daughter's bed. Has actuators to send it up and down, so if we want to do maintenance on there, we can. We can also store some small things from the outside as well. And then here, we actually have the ability to open this up and put a quick connect hose on it. It has hot and cold water, so we can rinse ourselves off, we can wash the dog off, wash the trailer, whatever we need to do, right from this port here. Oh, I should also mention we have the original awning on here as well. So it's the old school kind where you just, wheel it out, it's held up with two poles, and then you anchor some ropes to the ground, and that's what gives you your outside awning. So nothing electric or anything like that. In the future, if this thing doesn't hold up, we may upgrade it, but for now, we really like the vintage look of it. So on the back side here, you can see that these Jalousie windows, we had to double them up here. So the brackets on the original one, I couldn't find the right size anywhere, but fortunately, they had brackets that were exactly half the size, so I doubled up the windows. And it really still keeps that vintage look. Unfortunately, the bottom one does not go with the crank now. So the rest of these do, but to me that was a pretty small sacrifice in order to keep the Jalousie windows in the back. We also have a spare tire with a white wall on it, which the other ones will have white walls as well eventually once I figure out a better way to do it. The loading of the tires, like the sidewalls as they kick out, anything you add to it tends to want to punch off. So this doesn't bear any loads right now. Hopefully it never has to. So the white wall is held up pretty well on this one. We also have our freshwater port back here. We can do city water or a gravity fill. Of course, LED brake lights back here as well. I added reverse lights also because I wanted to be able to see when I was backing up. These old trailers don't always have those. And I also added a backup camera so that when I'm driving and reversing, I don't have to have another person back there necessarily to make sure that I'm not hitting something. So this is the back side of the trailer. We also have a little decal here to remind us of what the trailer's name is. So as we come around back here on the back side, you can see we have access to the new water heater that I put in. This is propane powered. Another access point for actuators back here. And then we also have 30 amp shore power here. So when we plug in, I wanted to upgrade that a little bit. When we bought it, it just had regular 110 plug in the back. But we added an air conditioner, so I wanted to have a little bit more juice there. And then here at the front of the trailer, the people before us put in this diamond plating here on the front to kind of protect it. I'm assuming there was some aluminum there that didn't make the cut. And then we added this cover here. There's two 20-gallon propane tanks under here that we use to heat our water, and we also use it for our stove as well. So why don't we go ahead and take a look inside. Come on in, take off your shoes, or my wife will kill you. So here we are on the inside of the camper, and this is one of my wife's favorite areas, and it's not just because this is the dining area and also our little master suite, but she also likes this because of this arch that's right above me here. As we first started planning what we wanted to do, one of the first things my wife asked for was, can we put an arch in there? And really this was the only place I could even think to put one, but when we put it in the rendering, she loved it. As a matter of fact, as you can look at the rendering, it's kind of mind-blowing, at least to me, that we rendered it a certain way, and when we were done, the similarities between the rendering and the way it actually came out are just crazy to me. It's not uncommon for me to do a rendering before I do a project, but usually so many changes happen, but really, I mean, the rendering is almost identical to what we ended up, putting into practice here, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, so this is our dining and master area. And obviously during the day this is a dining area, and it's just like most camper dinettes where the table will actually, you can just remove the base, lower it down onto a hinge, and then you have a flat surface and the cushions roll out into a bed. Pretty common thing. But we added this curtain here so that we would have a little bit of privacy when we shut the curtains to, just kind of separate things we can change and stuff like that, and don't have to worry about the, the kids being uncomfortable or having to constantly ask them to turn around and things like that. Now over here, to go with the vintage theme that we wanted to do, because we wanted the inside to have some modern amenities and a modern look, but also kind of have a nod to the 60s era in which this thing was built. So that's why in the back here we put this ginkgo biloba wallpaper, which my wife, loved, and I really think it's a great way to kind of tie everything together. It keeps the black and white thing going. It gives a nod to the 60s and really cleans things up, gives the back wall a little bit of visual interest. She also added these sconces from CB2, which she loves. Now those are 110 powered, AC sconces, so they run on AC power versus, all the other lights which are DC power. But the cool thing about this is when I put these sconces in, I was actually able to find a 110 switch AC that matches all of our DC switches. So if you look here, you'll see that our switches, all of them have this, kind of push button with the blue LED ring around it. And then also on the DC side, we also added these little, potentiometers so that we could actually dim them, because my wife is not someone who loves to have a bunch of bright light and stuff like that. But you can see here that this AC switch looks exactly like the rest of the DC switches. So it's kind of cool that we were able to keep the theme going, because usually you end up having to put just a regular, 110, switch, which is something that I personally didn't want to do. I wanted to keep the theme kind of going throughout. Another cool thing about this area is that this table here, as you can see, we used Clearview cabinetry from Menards. We wanted to go with IKEA originally, but we ended up finding this system, which is basically a knockoff kitchen system that Menards offers, which is really great, and I'll probably do a comparison video between IKEA and Menards in the not-too-distant future. But we really liked the way that this looked, and we actually liked the finish better when it was done than we did when we picked it out in the store and online. But this is called Varsta Canyon. Obviously, it's just a regular, veneer that you can't really make a cut like this on. And so what we ended up having to do was I went to my buddy Pat, who owns Redbud Ridge Custom Shop, and they do custom cabinetry. And I asked him some ideas, because we had considered maybe doing like a marble or like an epoxy table or something like that. And so he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll get my guy to try to match it. And his finishing guy, who he affectionately calls Michelangelo, was able to actually match this color almost perfectly. So I ended up doing just a red oak glue up here, and then he actually cut it to shape for me, and then had Michelangelo finish it up, and he did a fantastic job. Really happy with that. He also matched the under trim just below the windows there, and then he also did these little side rails which hold the table when you lower it in place. So another couple features here. The cushions are original. Those are the original avocado colored cushions that came with the trailer, and that was kind of a starting off point for us, where we said, okay, then we're going to have to use some green in here, and so that's what we ended up doing. We also have these 110 outlets that we have in the back, so that anybody can plug in a laptop or whatever the case might be. But we also have these combination USB-A and USB-C charging ports, which are really nice to have. They also have a blue glowing LED, so you can find them at night if you want to plug in your phone or something like that. We have these cup holders built into the ledge so that when we're sitting around hanging out, we can put our cups in there, particularly when the table is lowered and we are watching TV. And if you take a look around, you might notice that you can't see a TV, and that's because we have this remote where when you push the button, the TV will actually rise up out of the back. So that's kind of a handy feature, and it's also something to make you feel like you're, James Bond or something cool like that. For the upper cabinets here, I ended up having to build these. Originally, I was going to buy a couple of upper boxes and then just kind of work around it. But what I decided to do instead is just use some of the side paneling and stuff like that and build our own cabinets, which actually gives us quite a bit more room than using pre-hung boxes here, because we're able to use storage all the way back to the front. It's a little awkward space to work in because it's rounded, but overall we felt like it was the better way to go, and I'm really happy with that. So the next section I want to talk to you about here is the bathroom. Now this is something where I had my original plan kind of put together for what I wanted to do, but I just wasn't super confident in it. It was also one of the last things I did because I felt like this would be the most flexible space. Everything else was kind of set to the size it needed to be because of, mattress sizes or cushion sizes or cabinet sizes or whatever it was. But I felt like the bathroom, I could kind of tweak it to make it fit what I wanted to. So this was the last section I actually put in. Now, when I was getting ready to put it in, I was going to use some like vinyl shiplap on the inside. I was going to use a preformed shower pan and stuff like that. But I talked to my buddy Pat Reuter, again from Redbud Ridge Custom Shop, and he said, you know what, I have all this extra countertop material lying around. This is a DuPont material. It's called Corian. This is just plain white countertop material. It comes in half-inch sheets. It's fairly expensive stuff. It's like $750 for a 12-foot sheet for a countertop, so it's not exactly cheap, but he had a bunch of it extra lying around from a job that kind of fell through or he's still waiting on. So he was able to put this together for me as a favor, which is something I really, really appreciate. And he came up with this idea which kind of matched my original vision, but it went along with the product he was using. He knew how to work with it much better than I did, obviously. And then also, on top of the countertop material here, I got this, timbre door here, which I could only find in England, or Great Britain, I guess. United Kingdom? I don't know what it is. Anyway, so I ordered this tam door from the United Kingdom, and I love it. I thought this was the best solution because a lot of the retractable doors are like they're see-through and they're not very thick, and I didn't want to put an actual door in here. There's not much room. I had considered doing that at some point because it was like, man, I'm really running out of options, but I found this in the UK and ordered it off of eBay, and I just love it, and it slides very easily. It sticks with a magnet up against the wall. It's thick enough to really feel like you're separated from the outside. But as you can see, the bathroom, it's a bit small, but it's kind of what you get in a 16-foot camper. But I'm really happy with the way that this thing turned out on the inside. It's a wet bath, so we have our shower set up here on the wall. Just underneath it, we have our Separett tiny composting toilet. It's not really composting. It really just catches the solids in a bag. And it's a urine diverting toilet, so the solids go in the back, liquids go in the front, kind of a thing. You have to sit down when you use the toilet, but it's really cool because there's this flap here that doesn't open until you sit on it, and when you do, it opens. When you stand up, it kind of covers things up, so you don't have to be looking into the into the can if you don't want to. We have this toilet paper holder that we got on Amazon that just is kind of waterproof because it has a plastic cover on it, which I thought was really nice. And then we also have this cool vent light here from Max Air where if you want to vent out the bathroom, you could just push this up, turn the vent on, and vent things out. It also has a built-in light here, so that's pretty handy as well, to put everything into one unit. And then of course we put a couple shower hooks here so we could hang up towels and things like that. And then on the floor, the shower pan is made out of the same countertop material. You can see that Pat, my buddy, made this track built into the bottom and put these weep holes in there. So all this is very solid and fairly heavy. It's definitely not going anywhere. But we're really happy with the way that this turned out aesthetically. We also have the shampoo and soap kind of mounted on the wall here for easy access while you're in there. You don't have to worry about juggling bottles and things like that. But used it for 4 days, had no issues. We didn't use the shower as a shower anyway, but I really think it's going to be a good water savings because the shower handle actually has this button here, and you can actually stop the water flow, turn it on and turn it off, And then of course there's 3 shower settings here on the side. And that's nice because it allows you to kind of, you know, get yourself wet and turn it off without having to worry about readjusting temperature controls and stuff like that. You can just turn it off, turn it on when you need it, and then it's a high pressure shower, so it, you know, makes bathing very much like home. So kind of a comfortable way to do it, or so I guess. Like I said, we haven't used the shower yet as a shower, but I feel like that was definitely the best way to go. So here we are in the kind of kitchen portion here. It's kind of a galley kitchen. We have cabinets on one side and like the countertop and, you know, fixtures on the other. I'm really happy with the way this came out because, again, we really like the cabinetry that we got from Menards, the Clearview cabinetry that they have there. There are some things here that I'm particularly proud of. One of them is this backsplash. We didn't want to use peel and stick because I feel like that stuff is always unpeeling itself and it just looks, you know, kind of junky. I mean, you can tell it's not real tile. We wanted the look of real tile, but of course if you look online at people that make, you know, redo these kind of things, they warn you about using real tile because number one, it's heavy, and number two, you have to figure out how to grout it, and so it has a tendency to crack. Now the weight I wasn't too concerned about because this is just a, you know, I mean, it's like 30 inches wide and, you know, 1.5 feet tall. So it's really not very much material weight-wise. But the cracking was something I was concerned about. You know, going back and forth down the road, things get a little bumpy, and you end up, you know, cracking the grout. Now, I came up with an idea, and I did an experiment. I'm going to be releasing a video on that so that you can see how to do this as well. But what I did was I ended up using Flex Seal as the grout here because it gives flexibility. You can actually rotate this almost 90 degrees before it starts to separate or crack, which is much better than any type of grout that I tested. So I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. Now, of course, with Flex Seal, you're basically stuck with either white or black, but in our case, white worked out really well. Again, we wanted to incorporate elements from the 60s into a modern look, and we felt like this tile was the best way to do it. We felt like it was, you know, clean and still modern, still relevant, but also kind of gave a nod back to the original vintage 60s materials. So we did that. I'm really happy with the way that came out. Of course, we have our window here, which gives us a way to kind of vent things out and, you know, open up and just see the outside as we're cooking and things like that. We have a propane-powered stove, a couple of burners there, which is plenty for when we're camping. We have this really deep 10-inch sink, which comes with all these cool, you know, gadgets and stuff on the top. And then it's kind of it's a stainless sink, but it's also kind of like a dark, like almost a gunmetal. With our black faucet here, you know, very simple, very clean and modern. And then, of course, we can pull this out and we have a little bit of extra range there as we're washing up and things like that. And then this countertop is also a gift from my buddy Pat Reuter. He had this extra material lying around. Now, originally, when we, you know, kind of mocked this up, on, you know, to get our rendering going, we wanted to use a dark countertop, but we decided to go with an IKEA countertop, which we felt looked best when it was white marble. All the black or the darker stuff that we liked was all out of stock. But Pat came along and he said, hey, I have all this extra material. Why don't you come look at it and see if you like anything? And this is one of the things we liked. So he put this together for us, which was, again, very kind of him. Our trailer would not be anywhere near as beautiful as it came out if it wasn't for Pat and everything he did for us. So we're grateful to him. Of course, my wife has her feminine touches here, which makes, you know, the kitchen feel a little bit more homey. We have these cabinets. Now, I ended up having to cut down one of the cabinets because we just couldn't fit it in the space. So the middle cabinet is a little bit smaller than the other two, but we have plenty of room, you know, with stuff to store up top here. Down below, we have 2 drawers on one side. In the middle, we have our big storage section, which just has this piece kind of missing in the middle because we have the wheel well underneath there, which gave another bit of a headache. And on this side, we have our coffee maker, which pulls out, and this is a fully automatic espresso machine. Plenty of cool storage and stuff like that down underneath here, and we found that we had plenty of storage for everything that we needed when we went camping this last weekend, so really happy with the way that this whole section came out. Now, on the other side of the kitchen, we have this set of cabinets here. Now, you can see that our cabinets, all of them lock closed because we got these little cabinet connectors that we got these off Amazon, and they are fantastic. It takes just a little bit of pressure to close them. It's not, you know, overbearing by any means, but you really feel like it's got a good grip, you know, when you're opening them. We didn't have any cabinets open up on us when we were traveling because really these secure very well. But in addition to that security, and here we have our refrigerator, obviously, and I added this little, you know, support bar at the bottom. I also added that in this cabinet as well, which houses our microwave, air fryer, and oven, you know, a 3-in-1, which again has this support here. You can see the other side of the wheel well there on that. In this cabinet, pure storage. We used it all for clothes, I believe, this last camping trip. I never had to go in there, so I think all my kids' clothes were in here. And then in this bottom cabinet, we have our electrical setup, which my wife has a Swiffer that's always ready to go because she's a clean freak. Always easy access to our electrical if I ever have to change anything or I want to add anything into the future. We really like the way that this came out. We use these kind of modern pulls. They're very lightweight, very thin. Got them on Amazon, very inexpensive. And we felt like, again, it kind of had the modern feel to it, while at the same time, it kind of gives a nod to something vintage. And the cool thing about these finger pulls is you just screw them in the back. So in the future, if we ever wanted to change pulls, we could just fill those holes in the back and no one would ever really see them, and we could switch to whatever type of pull we wanted to switch to. So really, we just like the idea of having a solid, clean panel of cabinets on this side to give us as much storage as possible. Finally, we have the back section of our camper, and this is where my daughter and my son actually end up sleeping. And this is one of my favorite achievements in the camper because we had to figure out how can you sleep 4 people in a 16-foot camper where you want to have a kitchen and a working bathroom in it as well. And so this is what my solution ended up being, and I'm really happy with the way that all this came out. Now up top, you'll notice that the bunk seems a little high for someone to actually sleep on. And that's because nobody's supposed to sleep on it when it's this high. So during the day, we have the couch underneath where somebody can just sit down, hang out, you know, watch TV, do their thing. But at nighttime, when it's time to sleep, you don't need all this headroom underneath. And obviously, you need more room up above here so that you can sleep. And so I added some actuators. So now when it's in this configuration, you see that there's plenty of room for someone to sleep underneath and up top as well. We keep a ladder up top, so this was a ladder that I made from some extra oak I had lying around that I painted up. Mounts right here so my daughter can climb up and down without any problem. She has storage in the back there, just sliding doors, which I still need to come up with a locking mechanism because they slide open and shut when you're driving. It's very, very easy to open and close those. So got to do something about that. I have a couple of storage hooks up top that you can drop down and hang hats or cameras or whatever it is that you have with you. On the head side of her bed, there's a storage unit or storage box there as well that she can open up and she can store her clothes or shoes or whatever it is she wants to store in there. She also has a light up here, and we can control it from the upper or the lower portion. So if she doesn't want to have to climb up there to turn her light off because she forgot to before she raised the bed, we can just simply turn it on and off from down here. Up top we also have this Max Air fan. So we have an air conditioner that we installed in here, but of course that runs on 110. So if we're not connected to shore power, we can't run the AC, but what we can do is run our Max Air fan. And we use this all the time whenever we're not using the AC because it's a great way to bring either air in from the top, or you can, you know, kind of suck air out, open the windows, and it causes air to come into the windows because you have the negative pressure up here. And it really is a great way to keep airflow moving throughout the trailer and to keep yourself comfortable. I'll go ahead and raise the bed back up. Okay. So underneath here, now, my son has his setup down here, where this is basically a couch during the day. But when it's time to sleep, he can actually pull out the bottom, lay out the cushions, and then he has something that's about the equivalent of a twin mattress underneath. I think it's actually even like an inch wider. So basically, it's a very comfortable place for him to sleep. Our kids sleep better than we do when we go camping, so come to find out. But it really is a cool setup. My wife also found these cool pillows that she thought just was a great way to bring the 60s in again, the cool tiger vibe and everything. The cushions down here, my daughter actually made the cushion covers herself, and we're really proud that she was able to do that. She's quite the seamstress. She also helped to make the curtains in our sleeping area as well, so she's very talented and getting better all the time. But back here, there's side storage on both sides, so anything that my kids need to put away, their books, their phones, whatever, they can go in the side there. And then in the back, again, we have these cup holders, so as you're sitting in the back hanging out, you can store your drink back there without having to worry about it tipping over or anything like that. So if you want to come back here, I'll show you what the back panel looks like here in the back. So back here, there's a lot of cool stuff that you get to work with. So down here we have our TV, which this actually runs on DC power, so my son can watch TV even if we don't have shore power hooked up. It also has a battery, so he could actually watch TV even if the trailer battery was completely dead. Now here we have our water gauges. On the left side, we have our freshwater tank, and on the right we have our gray water tank. But if you look up above here, my son also has a reading light. So when he's hanging out back here, he can, read books or do whatever. Now here on our switch panel, we have the ability where we could charge with 2 USB-A ports there. We also have the regular 12-volt, cigarette lighter type connection there. And then in the middle here, I can see the voltage and exactly what we're looking at on the trailers to make sure that the battery's not dying, they're getting charged and stuff like that. Now down here on these switches, this is the switch for my daughter's bed. Here we have the hot water heater, which is nice to have when it's when you need hot water. This is our water pump, which is what we used this last week because they didn't have water hookups on the site. Here, these are our light controls. As I mentioned on the outside, we have lights on both sides of the trailer, so this controls the lights on the right, this is the lights on the left. And then this would be the switch that we use to lower and raise my daughter's bed when it comes to nighttime. Now on this side, this is our water heater controller, so you can turn the water heater on and off from here, and you can also set the temperature for the water heater to whatever you need it to be in order to make sure that your water's hot enough to take a shower, do dishes, or whatever the case might be. So one last thing I want to mention here is that on almost all of our windows, we installed these window shades, blackout shades from IKEA, which are great because you pull them down, they hold their position, as you would expect a window shade to do. But the cool thing about these is when you retract them, they take themselves up, kind of at a cool, slow speed. But also the nice thing about it is if you look to the sides, you'll notice that they don't go up all the way. And that was done on purpose. You can actually set these to only retract to a certain point. And the reason why that's handy is because my daughter's bed goes up and down, and what would happen if the window went all the way up, there's so little space between her bed and the window frame that if the shade had been stuck in the middle there, it would actually be enough to rip the window frame out. Now, that means the window shades can never fully be opened, but honestly, to me, it's worth the trade-off to not have to replace a window frame. Now, these are really cool old Jalousie windows. In order to open them, you just turn these window cranks, and then they open right up to the outside. Kind of a cool old vintage way to open windows. So one final thing to mention here is our freshwater system. We have a 40-gallon freshwater tank that feeds a 33-gallon gray water tank. We can use a pump or we can just run directly off the city line. We plumbed it so that we can, bypass the water heater or we can use the water heater. We also have low point drains and a regular drain for the tank itself. So we have lots of plumbing that got done here, and really there's not very many water situations we could get in where we don't have some sort of an option to help us out. Thank you for watching our tour here of Miss Betty. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you would like this video and consider subscribing to my channel because this is the stuff that I like to tackle. We're going to have a lot of videos coming out in the not too distant future. I've spent the last 14 months working on this thing, so if you're a van lifer or you're working on your own trailer, whatever the case might be, I think you might find it helpful to see how we did the bathroom stuff and how we used Flex Seal for the grout and how we used actuators to raise and lower my daughter's bed. So if any of those types of things interest you, please stay tuned. Hit that notification bell. I usually don't ask people to do that, but if you want to be notified to keep up as those come out, I would imagine that as these months keep going on, we're going to keep pouring these videos out until I've basically given you every single inch of this trailer. And with that, I hope you have a great day, and I'm going to see you on the next video.